Hello everybody, this is Your Life My Hands. I've wanted to have like a little cooking channel for quite some time, and I'm gonna be making today some, I'm gonna call it like kitchen cupboard food, which is basically anything that you have in your kitchen cupboard that could be used to make something. I don't feel like making a whole lot of anything expensive, so I'm gonna use what I got today, and we're gonna figure it out along the way and see what it actually turns out as. I always suggest you start out with a couple fresh vegetables and herbs, spices, whatever you got. But once again, this is kitchen cupboard stuff. So this stuff was in my fridge, and that's what I'm going to start with. Now, I'm not going to be exactly like, I'm just going to say it, I am not a professional at much of anything. However, I'm just going to do one of my own little ways of cutting and cooking onions, because people really like to have all the tips and tricks down and all this different stuff. Well, I don't have any of those. So there, we got an onion now. Simple as, what I like to do is I like to cut them in half this way, and that's not how some people do it, but whatever. This is my cooking channel, my cooking world. So, onions like that, pretty simple, right? Next thing I'll do is I'll take my smaller knife, slice it down this way, and what we will end up with is some very, very finely diced onion. Now, I kind of like chunkier onion, so maybe this one's not for you. But by doing it that way, cut down the middle this way, and then putting some slices in that way, when you're done with it, you end up with just nicely diced onion. And like I said, that's a good size for me, personally. That's what I like. So let's continue that. Like I said, I like bigger chunks of onion sometimes, and you get a nice variety. Some of them are going to be longer, some of them are going to be smaller, and I'm not here to finely dice anything like super fine. Some professional chef can do that. I like a little bit of variety of texture when it comes to onion, and I use onion a lot. And then, like I said, for this, it's just whatever, man. There's no rhyme or reason to it, honestly. But you at least get a really easy way to cut up onion. So I'm going to use a full onion for this, and it's also going to be put into my large cast iron pan, and then we'll get to the garlic. So when it comes to cooking, usually I big advocate for garlic. I don't mind the, like, not canned stuff, but the bottled stuff like Spice. I think it's Spice World garlic. I don't mind some of that stuff. But honestly, its flavor is really lacking to me, and I really like the real super, almost like kind of bitey spice of garlic, and that kind of stuff is just really mild. That I don't know how they removed that garlickiness from it. You can totally, if you don't have fresh garlic, use like dried garlic or garlic powders. I actually have what I really enjoy. It's I think it's from McCormick or one of those spice companies, but it's a chunky, like, diced dried garlic, and that gives it a really nice, like, meatier, or not meatier, but just a thicker texture to it. And textures are important when you're trying to cook stuff. You really don't want something to have like all the same texture. Garlic can be a lot of fun to work with, to break all the shells and get it open. Hopefully anyone who's watching this at least knows how to open garlic. But yeah, it is what it is. And your hands will smell probably for the rest of the day. Not the worst smell in the world, but whatever. Honestly, I think when you start, it just went right in the, I couldn't even, bounced right in the trash. It's gone, like at the bottom of the trash too. Okay. Well, I didn't want that to happen, but whatever. I think when you're starting to cook, some of the bases you can do, this one's just like, so this is kitchen cupboard food. Like, this is like, all right, what do I got? I don't want to go to the store, or store's not open, and what do I have? That's what this is. But I think if you're going to start cooking, usually my trick is to have a protein to start with, is usually how I do it. And that could be me walking into the store and finding something that's on sale. However, you know, with this instance, you can also start with a very nice base of vegetables. And I had these in the cupboard, stewed tomatoes, which are like my favorite kind of tomato in the world. that's a really good vegetable base, but also you're never going to go wrong by starting with something like onions, garlic, or bell pepper, or whatever you got on hand. Probably that's the best advice I can give. If you're going to start cooking, just have something you're starting with. Like, I got ground beef, or I got sausage, or I got, whatever. Go from there. That's probably the best way to learn about it. So I'm not going to throw these in yet. I'm just going to get these diced up. I like to take off the little stems on them just because they're kind of roughage and they may not cook down the way I want them to. It's got a little bit of junk on it. Never cut towards your thumb with a really sharp knife, but you know what? This is my channel. I can do whatever I want. So yeah, start that way. I'm gonna get these. Like I said, these are basically all the prep I'm gonna do to these because I got a nice garlic. It's not nice, it's from Walmart, but got a nice garlic slicer, and those will be added in once the onions are kind of getting translucent. So I'm gonna get this fired up, and then I'll be able to find a better spot for my phone, or I need to actually go get like a pod for it that I can put it up there. Nice. I'm gonna actually use this one as a dual one. Came from Walmart. Great little thing. You can have, of course, have the garlic, like, mincer right here. Also came with a slicer, and honestly, I really prefer that. I like garlic slices because it's, like I said, it's got a nice body to it. And when you bite into one of them, if you like garlic, I mean, you're gonna be getting like a nice bite of garlic. So actually, in the meantime, I might as well get this done instead of just twiddling my thumbs. I'm gonna put these in here. And it's really nice because it really does just slice them right up, and you get some nice big garlic chunks. And we'll definitely have to let those saute for a little while because they're so big. You really don't want to, undercook them, because then that garlic is going to be a little bit too strong probably, and it's not going to break down as nicely. Of course, like I said, I like a lot of garlic. This is not a recipe. You will find, if anyone actually attempts to follow this thing, that I do not use recipes when it comes to cooking, which is also why I struggle at baking. I don't like following the rules. All right, so now my phone is positioned nicely on top of the fridge, being held up by a cushy and something else. So that's not exactly professional, but whatever. I'm not worrying about that. So onions are starting to get a little bit sauteed, a little bit translucent. I do want these to cook down a good ways. I'm not going to stew this for very long. If I was going to be stewing something for hours, I probably would not be so worried about how cooked down these are. But that's not looking too bad. I may actually add in a little bit more butter too, because I wouldn't mind this dish being fairly savory. Also, not using fresh meats and stuff like that. There's not going to be as much fat in it, which isn't too much of a problem. But you really can't have too much butter. All right, I'm gonna open the fridge. Let's see does the phone fall down? No, it doesn't. If you're ever cooking, just do yourself a favor. Go buy some Kerrygold. This stuff is just the best. It's honestly going to be the best stuff that you're going to find. If you're not making your own butter, that is. And you owe it to yourself. If you're actually going to go and cook something and you want to do something right, just go ahead and buy some good stuff.
It's definitely expensive though.
All right, so these are cooking up real nicely. I sometimes like to, if I can, find the individual slices of the garlic and let that sit directly on the heat, so it's not floating on top of the onions, and it's actually gonna kind of turn it or cook it down a little bit faster and really let it cook quicker. Because if you just let them kind of float on top of the onions, it'll work, but then the onions are gonna cook too fast. So this is definitely also making my eyes water, which is really nice. Anyways, I got my stewed tomatoes over here, which I'm going to get opened up. Stewed tomatoes are just, as I said, one of my favorite. Diced tomatoes are good, but they cook down way too quick, and I really like the body that's on a stewed tomato. And you get a really, really good kind of sauce that goes with it, which cooks down nicely. So if you can reduce it a little bit and you stew it for long enough, that watery aspect of the stewed tomatoes will really cook down nicely. I got a couple other things over here. Got some peas and carrots and stuff like that. And then this is my protein, which I'm sure some people would have complaints on, but this is what I had. And I'm just going to add the entire cooked ham into it, probably towards the end. And those things come with a nice layer of fat on there, so I'll probably give it a nice mouthfeel and body to it. But that's what I got. So, you know, if this was me making something a little bit nicer, it would probably be with a nice ground beef, or it would be with a Italian sausage. But this is what I got, and that's what I'm going to use. So let me actually, while I'm sitting here, just put it in. Nice and hot. Okay. So that's that. I'll get that all nice and mixed up. If you don't like these big chunks of tomatoes, I mean, just feel free to like kind of mash them into, cut them up a little bit with like whatever you're using. I'm only gonna do that to some of these like really big ones, but I like the, you know, the body on a stewed tomato. If it's nice and it's not too big, I mean, that's very manageable. Yeah, if you got giant tomato slices in there, feel free to cut them up or whatever. Some people are very texturally sensitive to foods, so I totally understand if you don't want to have all that in there, but it doesn't bother me. What I would traditionally do with this probably is I'll add in those other things after these cook down a little bit, the other vegetables and all the protein. You can add in some like noodles to this and make like a really nice hearty stew. I am a type 1 diabetic, so I'm like, I try not to eat a whole lot of like pastas, even though that's my favorite thing on earth. I'm a terrible diabetic. I'm not gonna do that with this. So this will probably just be vegetables, the tomatoes, the peas and carrots, and the cooked ham. That'll probably be it. We'll see how it goes. All right, so as you can see, I got these in here. I actually saved about half of the water that came out of the peas and carrots. So the water that is inside of the cans is actually just, I mean, anyone knows it's very flavorful, and especially with the carrots, it's got a real nice natural sweetness to it, which I think will help cut down on any of the acidicness of the tomatoes. So hopefully that's the case. And it definitely adds a little bit of moisture to it, but it's really not that bad in my opinion. I think if anything, we're gonna let this simmer for a while and kind of reduce all that water down. And chances are in the end, it'll be a much thicker, almost like a stew is kind of what I'm going for, even though this is a very small pot. I am, of course, just cooking for myself, so I can't make too big of things or else my freezer is going to get another workout. But that's kind of the goal. So I'm just going to let this simmer probably for about 30 minutes and let it just cook down, reheat, let these flavors get to know each other. I will actually introduce some spices and some seasonings. So let me grab some things out here. And I'm sure people would love to complain about my spice choices, but you know, you always got to realize this is my food. So anyways, freshly ground black pepper. I really like ground pepper. I don't even have a pepper shaker. I love this thing because it just cuts the peppercorns like almost in half sometimes. So I like a lot of pepper in my opinion. So that's perfectly fine to me. I also forget I have some of these. Anyways, I have some mustard, ground mustard, to give it a kind of an earthy flavor is kind of what I'm shooting for here. This is kind of one of those things you can just add whatever you want, and this thing never comes out like I want it to. You can add whatever you want here, and the flavors are going to combine. Like you don't need to worry about, you know, oh, is it going to make it taste weird, or is it going to make it add a certain amount of you know, like earthiness to it. Like listen, this isn't you know, like YouTube cooking. Let's calm down here. Like fanciness. Crushed red pepper. Love tomatoes and crushed red peppers. That flavor combination of the sweet and the spicy is just wonderful once they really get combined. I also have a couple bay leaves I'll toss in here. I mean, it seems like every recipe. That doesn't look like a good bay leaf. I'm gonna throw that one away. What else we got here? That's a good one. Put one of them in there. Seems like all the recipes require bay leaves and nobody actually knows if they do anything, but you know, we're just gonna throw them in anyways. Got 3 of those. And personally, what I really like when I cook anything that could be even remotely considered Italian, it's not, a couple fennel seeds. And fennel seeds will really absorb flavors and they get really soft, but they give it a really nice flavor to it when you actually do bite into one of them. I find it very pleasing to the palate. So all those combined and mixed up. Don't lose your bay leaves because you're gonna need to pull those out later as they're not very edible. Let's get that mixed up. And by letting it simmer longer, like 30 minutes, I mean, even if you went up to an hour, that's totally fine. These flavors are really gonna get to know each other, and it'll reduce down, and also it'll really help some of those garlic slices to really cook down and not, you know, be such a pungent, strong flavor when you actually bite into it. Doesn't that look delicious? Oh, look at that little jiggle in there. Ooh, you hear that? Yeah, that's some good stuff. So I actually like this Goya brand ham. I know it looks terrible, it really does, but you know what? This stuff is actually really good. It lasts for like 5 years, and I like canned meats like this. I don't know why. I always find them very interesting. I cubed it in here. I just took my knife, sliced it up, made nice little cubes, keeping it like that because honestly, that looks gross, but that is actually a lot of flavor and fat that'll complement all of these vegetables really nicely. Once again, we're not gonna have noodles in here. We're not gonna have any stuff like that. So having that's gonna be some great flavor profile. I'm not salting this until this is cooked thoroughly. And I mean, it's already cooked, but cooked into here, and a lot of that salt is drawn out of the ham itself. So not exactly my preferred meat or protein that I would use, but this will work fine. Once again, if you have canned chicken, I mean, you could just throw that in there too. It doesn't really matter at that point. Same thing with the canned chicken though. All that brine and flavor that the chickens are in, like, or the chicken meat is in, you could just like throw that in there too and let that reduce down as well. You get a really nice flavor profile. So this is what I'm using. It certainly is the most unappealing looking thing ever. But hey, it's good till 2027. All right, so I'm pretty much done with this thing. I may let it stew for like a little bit longer, just to help break some more things down. But I wanted to give it a taste test and see how it is. Plus, I'm actually just hungry right now. So I'm gonna give this a try. Okay, couple things. I love starting any kind of cooking with tomatoes in general because they're sweet and you can really work with that. Combination with the peas and carrots, which I consider like canned ones, like sweet. Excellent. The ham is ham. It doesn't really taste like much of like, I mean, it tastes like ham. There's nothing special about it. Definitely suggest if you're gonna make something like this is like a diabetic version without the good stuff like pasta, which I would love to add into here. If you're gonna make this, I really do highly suggest like red pepper chili flakes, decent amount of ground pepper, and whatever other spiciness you may want. It's really, really working well with this. It doesn't look great, but this is once again, like cupboard stuff. This is whatever you got in there that you make this with, and that's exactly what it is. For me, it's healthy. It works out really well. Just vegetables and a meat. You can, once again, add some water, throw in some pasta. You could throw in some lentils. You could put in anything you want here that you would prefer. Rice. Rice would be excellent with this. It's got a wonderful sauce on it that would absorb well in the rice. That's just the most basic thing you can do with a couple cans of stuff. And you're gonna end up with some pretty decent food. I like the sweet and the little bit of that spiciness that comes in the background. Wonderful, wonderful. I'll probably reduce this down just a little bit longer, but that's totally up to your preference. I like a thick bowl of, I guess this would be considered like a stew almost at this point. So hope you enjoyed. Give it a shot. Just experiment along. That's all that cooking is, in my opinion. It's just experimentation. So do it yourself, have some fun. Everyone have a great week. I'll talk to you all later.